You're listening to Shoe In, covering the ins and outs of all things footwear, from sneakers to heels, loafers to slippers, and every type of shoe in between. Brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. And now your footwear insiders, Matt Priest and Andy Polk.
Welcome back, all our footwear friends, to the Footwear Industries podcast Shoe In Show. We're your insider, taking you inside the business side of the industry on what's happening in real time, trends, best practices, tips, insights in order to optimize and create efficiencies in our operations, but also really see what's happening in our marketplace, how consumers are changing, what trends are changing, etc. So, you know, Matt, we've seen a huge uptick in the number of listeners, which we're really grateful for during this pandemic. But obviously, because more people are at home and they're trying to stay connected and stay up to date. So I'm really glad we started this podcast several years ago. People can go back and look at all 200 episodes on shoeinshow.com. Many of those podcasts are still very relevant today, even though we see a lot of changes and shifts. Some of the topics, though, do need to be updated, and that's why we're doing this one today, in particular around duties and supply chains and all the different things that are going to be shifting and changing as a result of consumer demand, but also the channel. The channel now is more e-commerce and will be more than ever before, right?
Yeah, that's right, Andy. I appreciate the opportunity to kind of come together and talk about duties, as much of that as a buzzkill. You know, we typically pay about $3 billion in duties annually. And at the end of this year, our expectation is it will be in like $3.9 billion range because of the China trade war. And as you know, we've been advocating for the administration, the Trump administration, to cancel duties. They're not going to do that. But we also sent a letter back all the way back on March 10th asking that they allow us to defer duty payments. And so they've started to allow that for March and April shipments, which has been helpful, but we want to extend that. But beyond that, we wanted to bring in an expert to talk about just the whole idea of duties and what some of the new developments are, what's going on as it relates to duty deferral programs and foreign trade zones and duty drawback and all the technical aspects of trying our best to lower our duty bills. And so with that, I want to welcome Liz Connell, who's Senior Director of Product Management for ONESOURCE Global Trade. She has presented at our events before. She's been an active participant at FDRA events and other get-togethers in the past. And so, Liz, you've never been on the Shoe In Show, but we wanted to change that today. And so welcome to the program. We really appreciate you coming on.
Great. Thanks, Matt and Andy. I'm so excited to be here with you guys.
Awesome. So let's get right down to it. We're paying a crap load of money in duties as an industry, and we are always incentivized to look at every trick of the trade as it relates to lowering our duty bill. As you're advising companies, Liz, you have like 2 or 3 things that you're looking at. Walk us through that. What if you're in a room with a footwear company paying a ton of duties? Where do you start and how do you guide them through this process?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I think what we're finding for our customers, the biggest thing is finding opportunities for both duty savings and visibility to opportunities for duty savings. So I would say the first would be foreign trade zones. I know you've heard me talk about them in the past. They're a wonderful program for duty reduction, but we're finding, especially in the footwear and apparel vertical, that they're using these foreign trade zones in new and creative ways. And so with a foreign trade zone, you can defer duty payment. And we know that companies are all looking for ways to save money right now, keep the duty in their pockets for longer. And FTZs allow you to do that duty deferral. But what we're also finding, you have duty elimination on exports. But for this industry, a lot of the product that was coming in for spring and summer that can't find stores right now because they're closed, they're looking for foreign trade zones to put this product so that they don't have to pay duty and maybe release them next summer when the stores are hopefully back open and thriving. So, maybe not all of their product, but some portion of this summer season product that can't make stores right now, they're putting into foreign trade zones to eliminate that duty payment. The second part would be duty visibility. So, we've talked about moving supply chains and looking for opportunities for savings for years now, but with the dynamic regulatory requirement and general demands on people's resources and time, nobody's had the time to really stop and focus on how to be more strategic, or at least haven't had enough time to do it. So we're seeing a huge uptick in demand and need for tools for visibility, right? Making those smarter supply chain decisions because, well, frankly, they have a little time on their hands, right? Well, things are slowing down. So they can bring those products to the forefront of their to-do list, if you will.
Right. So, I mean, let's just kind of go back to basics. I know a lot of people use foreign trade zones. They've thought about them. They've been to our conferences. They've heard you talk about them. But a foreign trade zone is essentially in typical circumstances, a distribution center, a warehouse of some sort in the United States on U.S. soil that has been designated a foreign trade zone. And for commerce purposes, even if your product is unloaded at the Port of Long Beach and brought somewhere into Southern California to a warehouse, if it's a foreign trade zone for commerce purposes, it has not entered into the U.S. marketplace. Is that the best way to look at it?
Yep, exactly. It's like a little island where you can bring product in and not pay the duties until it actually leaves. So your warehouse would become, or your distribution center can become, a foreign trade zone.
And what's the process to get foreign trade zone status? I know the FTZ board is housed at the Department of Commerce here in DC, but how rigorous is it if people are interested in it? And duties, I mean, June 17th, 2020 is the 90th anniversary of Smoot-Hawley. So, and just the current trend lines that we're seeing on tariffs doesn't lead me to believe that we're actually going to be reducing tariffs anytime soon. So the utility of FTZs is probably stronger than it's ever been. So how do folks figure out how the best way of developing and creating an FTZ and going through the application process?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a lot easier than it used to be. The FTZ board has streamlined that process. You do have to do an application and work with your local grantee to get approved. And then there is an exercise with your local customs officers who will approve and activate the facility just to ensure that you have the right securities in place. Typically, we find it somewhere between 3 to 5 months, the whole entire process. I'm putting the later dates out there, and we know that there's some ports that have staffing constraints due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So it is taking a little bit longer to go through this process, but it's usually not that difficult. It's more just going through the application and the activation phase. There's lots of fabulous consultants out there that can help navigate that process for you.
Yeah, well, that's good to know because I used to work at the Commerce Department. I knew the FTZ board well. It was kind of in the same division of the department that I was in. And I remember going and touring FTZ zones for Rogaine and for auto parts and for all these different types of product, pharmaceuticals. And I just think that the footwear industry and the apparel industries in particular, there have been some companies out there that have taken advantage, but it's not as widely used as I would have expected. And so I just want people to understand, one of the ways in which people can think about deferring duties and finding some outs, I think, is in the FTZ process. But let's pivot to duty deferral specifically. Duty drawback, I should say. Kind of walk us through that. We've talked about it before, but walk us through duty drawback. And are there any, what's kind of the current status on drawback, and are people utilizing it in this environment?
Yeah, that's a great question. So with the new TIA drawback requirements, a few years ago, drawback regulatory requirements and filing changed. It's making it easier for companies to take advantage of the drawback program and optimizing those savings. So we are seeing a big uptick in our drawback usage as well. Now, drawback, you can go back and recover duties in the past. So it's more of a retroactive, if you're paying just regular duties or some of the retaliatory duties, you can claim those import duties back on product that's been exported. And so that's really good if you've got a large amount of money, sort of you've been exporting for the last few years, and you want to claim that money back. You can do that using the drawback program. What we're finding are companies are doing both drawback and FTZs together. So they're not exclusive programs like they used to be in the past. So, foreign trade zones can be very proactive where you're never paying or eliminating that duty payment, where drawback programs are reactive and getting back that money. And so we're finding companies are using them in partnership because it's not always straightforward. Not everything always travels through your distribution facility. And so maybe for some subset of product, a foreign trade zone makes a lot of sense. But then for other product, you drop ship and then end up exporting or something along those lines, a drawback program makes a lot of sense to recover those duties that you had to pay because you couldn't move them through a foreign trade zone.
So those are two of the kind of the main tools in the arsenal for duties. Is there anything else that's out there that you think listeners should be aware of or should be thinking about? We're grasping at so many straws right now, because when you have a $4 billion duty bill and you import in over 99% of your product, it's really hard for us to stomach the ways in which those duties impact our competitiveness as companies here in the U.S., impact American jobs. Mm-hmm. Newsflash for our listeners, the Chinese don't pay the duties, just letting you know. But is there anything else out there? I'm really grasping at this point, Liz, but I'm hoping that you can help me figure some other opportunities out.
Yeah. The only other one I'd put out there, and I know it's a challenge for footwear and apparel companies, would be reevaluating free trade agreements. There are a few out there, maybe not necessarily the easiest to participate in, but USMCA is coming. There are a few things that improve, make it easier to qualify for footwear and apparel companies under USMCA, but even CPTPP. So I know it doesn't work with imports into the U.S., but we've seen some companies get pretty creative, bringing product in from countries in Asia and exporting to Canada through foreign trade zones. So sort of combining all of these programs together to leverage a free trade agreement. There's no silver bullet, Matt, unfortunately. And that's where some of those visibility tools really help to just do that kind of analysis. What opportunities are out there, whether it's foreign trade zones, duty drawback, free trade agreements. That's a great question. And I know that it's not easy to move supply chains, but the other thing we're seeing a lot of is, companies that put all their eggs in one basket, whether it be China or wherever, and feeling between the retaliatory tariffs and this pandemic, feeling a lot of pressure to diversify their supply chain. So really seeing, okay, if I move a facility, are there free trade agreements now that I can take advantage of that maybe I couldn't before because I was doing business in different countries?
That's a great point, Liz. I'm glad you brought that up, because we even had a call with our members yesterday, and one of our messages was, look, because of the pandemic and its origin, China, because of the rhetoric from the administration and just the ways in which the two countries are at loggerheads because of the China trade war, I think there will continue to be, and there has been, it's a bipartisan thing, and there has been for quite some time, this anti-China rhetoric that plays politically well. And then being in an election season, you have both candidates, basically trying to show up each other on who could be the nastiest to China. And so I think the public perception, because of all those things mixed together, will make it more and more difficult to have all of your eggs in the China basket. And so we've been telling our members, look, there was a press release recently from the Energy and Commerce Committee, and it literally said, how do we rip and replace the supply chain in China? And so these are policymakers talking about how to do that. And our most recent data shows that our imports from China fell 46%, which is the lowest month in more than 25 years. And so I think, to your point, there is this desire for us, because of the trade war, because of the political rhetoric, because of the virus and the negative impact on China's image, I think globally, there's going to be a desire for diversification. And so if you can go into the Western Hemisphere and kick the tires again on Mexico, because of NAFTA and the USMCA, or you can go into Ethiopia because the African Growth and Opportunity Act will save you some duties. I think that now's the time to be exploring those options, because it's the majority of relying on China for most of your footwear. I think those days will be coming to a screeching halt here very soon.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
Walk us through kind of what you do specifically, how you help advise clients, the best ways to get in touch with you, all the things that make you guys who you are, and so that as people listen to this, they can make sure that they have access to you and to your products and services.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Sure.
As you mentioned, I'm part of ONESOURCE Global Trade. We're a division of Thomson Reuters company. And so we support companies doing global trade all around the world. So importing and exporting from over 100 different countries. And so helping maintain those compliance requirements and offer visibility within their supply chain using their data. So their imports, their exports, their broker filing information, to help them, through our tools, identify opportunity for duty savings or, mitigating risk and compliance issues and fines and penalties. So you can find us on the Thomson Reuters ONESOURCE website, or you can reach out to me directly. I'm elizabeth.connell@tr.com. So you can reach out to me and I can connect you with people who can help you with any of your questions you might have.
That's awesome. That's cool. It's elizabeth.connell@tr.com for Thomson Reuters.
Yeah.
Make sure, folks, if you have questions, to reach out to her directly, or you can shoot an email to info@fdra.org and we'll connect you to Liz as well. With that, I want to bring in Jasmine, who is our resident expert on fashion, on what people are wearing, and for her world famous segment, which I don't know will be. And so it's a surprise for all of us. So Jasmine, you're up. The floor is yours, my friend. So where are you taking us today?
Hey, Liz. So we usually do either what you got, what you're getting, or we kind of talk about like fashionable things that are happening this week or just something new. Of course, since we all kind of been stuck in the house, I'm curious to how your footwear has been. Have you been investing in more slippers? Are you going outside? Like how has your footwear fashion been during this time, Liz?
That's a great question. So I am a mother of 3 fabulous children, so homeschooling and the like here. And lots more slippers in our house to stay warm in our upstate New York house. So yeah, more slippers.
Okay, awesome. Are you still purchasing shoes? Is it on hold right now? How has your footwear shopping been? Have you been doing e-commerce?
So lots of e-commerce purchasing from our house. We have been buying a few more shoes, not as many as usual with all the sports seasons being canceled. So I haven't had to buy this year's round of cleats and other footwear, but we did get the slippers and we have a few new Stubber sandals coming in, but a little bit down from the past year.
Cool. Yeah. New sandals are definitely on my list too. So I'm right with you.
So folks, Liz, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. We are doing this all from our own basements, which is unique for us. Usually we're in a studio together, but to have the opportunity to connect with you on all the options as it relates to duty deferrals, foreign trade zones, and duty drawback was really helpful. Thank you for that. You guys are needed now more than ever, so we appreciate you coming on the program.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really had fun.
Good. And so, folks, we ask that you join us at shoeandshow.com for all of our more than 200 episodes. We've been taping this podcast almost 3 years, which is hard to believe. We also ask that you rate us, and we only accept 5-star ratings. If you click 4.5, you will be automatically kicked out of the rating system, which is by design. So go to iTunes or wherever you download your favorite podcasts and make sure you rate us and spread the word. Our numbers are skyrocketing right now for good reason. People are focused. We have a lot to talk about. And if you have something you want to talk about, just go to shoeandshow.com and click on the little mic icon and you can drop us a note that we will play on the air. And so that's another way for you to interact with the program. And so on behalf of Andy, Jasmine, and myself, thanks for listening. Shoe In is out.
Shoe-In has been brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. For information about FDRA, visit fdra.org.